Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
All right, gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. My name is Scott McKay, at Scott McKay on both Clubhouse and Twitter, Real Scott McKay on Instagram. You can search Scott McKay on YouTube to find all the video goodies. The website, as always, is mountaintoppodcast.com, and I invite you to join our group of like-minded men on Facebook at the Mountaintop Summit. But you guys know all that. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of today's show, as I often like to say. I have a new friend. You guys are going to like her immediately as I did. Her name is Leslie Ehm, and she's from Canada. And she has written a really cool book with a title that I think is going to hit home for so many of us. It is called Swagger. Unleash everything you are, become everything you want. And the topic today is not only going to be, well, swagger itself, but also what's the difference between swagger and, say, confidence and arrogance and other really triggering words like that we often use to describe people who feel pretty good about themselves and may have various degrees of impact on other people by how they present themselves in that light. So without anything further, welcome to the show, Leslie. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, thank you for having me. Well, we already are having a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Everyone missed out on the precursor to this, the pre-gossip.
Oh, yeah. We talked about all kinds of things we're going to have to get to on this show. The first thing that you talk about in terms of swagger is that this unleashes everything you are to become everything you want. So I guess, Leslie, you need to define your version of swagger for us as you see it.
Yeah, when you hear the word swagger, you usually think of this arrogant, show-offy, peacocky, in-your-face kind of jam, like the pants low on the hips and the gold chains and the attitude and all of that kind of stuff. That is not the kind of swagger I'm talking about. That is old swagger, bad swagger. I've redefined swagger as the ability to manifest who you really are and hold on to it in the face of all of that psychological crap that's going to come for it, regardless of the situation or environment. So it means you got one face, one truth, one heart, and you show up with that no matter who you're with, no matter what's going on around you, and no matter what challenges you're facing, probably, most importantly, that you are able to hold on to that no matter what.
I love it. I think that's a beautiful definition, and I'll tell you why. You're talking about power. You're talking about how you present yourself, and that's coming from a foundational element of knowing who the hell you are and having identity. Because if you don't know who you are, you're not going to have a whole lot of confidence or swagger about what your place in this world is and how you're supposed to present yourself, right?
Yeah, and it's also unshakable. Because it's you, it's who you are. Swagger is much more about self-acceptance than it is about actively seeking that sense of self-assuredness. Because that's inevitable. When you accept yourself and you say, actually, I'm all good. If your intention in this life is clear and your intention is to not be an asshole and you're just muddling through life like the rest of us, you're all good to go. And all of the things that make you special and magical and unique, all of those things that you might consider to be idiosyncrasies or little weird things about you or little special, that's what makes you super powerful. Because only you have this combination of stuff. That's the beautiful thing. So the power, all that power lies within you. And if you accept that, no one can take it away from you. People can come for you, but you just go, hey, you do you, boo, and I'm going to do me. It's all good. It's all
Absolutely.
Good. It's all love.
Yeah, okay. So a lot of guys are probably saying to themselves, well, if I only knew, this McKay guy and his guests on Mountaintop Podcast talk a lot about finding purpose and knowing what my abilities are and going about life with a sober judgment of what my true aptitude is compared to those things I probably shouldn't be doing. But, that's a lot to sort out before I get to this elusive state of swagger, right? So what I hear you saying is it all starts with knowing thyself, even at the personality level. I mean, what kind of sense of humor do I have? What kind of quirks do I have? What makes me unique? What makes me different than other people? And instead of trying to change all those things to fit in, like sheep, we should celebrate those things and, well, for lack of a better way to put it, milk them to their total potential, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is the quest for the true self is eternal. So let's just put that on the back burner because that's huge.
Yes, that's a different show.
Let's just think about, when we talk about authenticity, think about it in really simple terms. It is no more complicated than whether what you say and do aligns with what you think and feel. If you are aligned in your actions and your thoughts and your words, that makes you authentic. And not everybody is going to dig it. And that's okay. That's why we have to bring intention into it, back into it. I think it's really important. There are 3 elements to driving your swagger into this world, and they are truth, intention, and self-belief. And the reason that truth has to go with intention is because it is the thing that keeps you in check from being an asshole. You got to ask yourself, what am I trying to accomplish here with these words or with these deeds? Do I want to? Am I trying to actively offend people, or have I inadvertently, accidentally offended people? And if you have, it's okay. Life goes on. It's okay to say my bad or not my bad if you don't believe that what you said or did was truly offensive, because everyone's level of tolerance is different, and we cannot be for everyone in this life. And so often when we try to be for everyone, we end up vanilla-ing ourselves to the point of absolutely banal assimilation. And then we stand for nothing. We're not for anybody. People just overlook us and stuff. And nobody wants that. People want to be seen and accepted and respected for who they really are. Because if you're pretending to be someone or something that you're not, and people give you love and respect, you're going to be asking yourself all the time, wait a second, is it really me that they love and respect? Or is it just this avatar, this persona that I'm projecting? And is that really worth it? Is that legitimate? I know for myself personally, I would rather be loved and accepted for who I really am by a set number of people than to be loved and accepted by millions based on someone or something that I'm not. That would be my personal choice.
I remember one time I got hate mail from someone, and these days I usually don't respond to it. But I knew this person and they knew me, so I responded with, coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment. Because this person believed so differently than me that I wouldn't have expected anything less than for them to vehemently dislike and be militantly against what I was for. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing something right in my own mind if this person is against what I'm doing. As you were talking, Leslie, I was thinking for all those poor bastards out there who are trying to fit in with everybody and make everybody like them, the more influence they manage to achieve if they somehow claw up the social ladder and get people on their side, the more they're going to realize just how impossible it is to get everybody to like you. If you have like 3 people in the entire world and they all like you, it might be easy to think, hey, this little tiny echo chamber that I've built, I don't know how much of an echo there is in a chamber of 4 people, but, for the purpose of illustration, if we all agree, it would be easy to lull ourselves into a sense of security in that, hey, the whole world must think the same way the 4 of us do. After all, the 4 of us agree. Yeah, well, try building a mailing list of about 65,000 people, and you're going to realize there are a whole lot of people out there who don't like you simply because you believe what you believe. I've marveled at how certain famous people who put themselves in a firestorm of controversy can wake up in the morning and hold their head up high versus really just shriveling into a fetal position at the foot of the bed, sucking their thumb. Obviously, anybody in American politics has got to have this kind of swagger you're talking about, because literally half the country thinks they're awful and the other half of the country thinks they're going to save everybody, which has got to be some kind of roller coaster to ride. So the degree of influence, and indeed, I don't know how much of a lightning rod your stated purpose or what you're about tends to be, all that acts in combination to really require that your swagger become more and more ironclad as you build upon it, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when we talk about politicians, again, I go back to intention. If the intention is to truly serve the collective and the greater good, then that is part of what protects them. For the rest of the people who don't have that kind of intention, and they're really functioning more on the power, the craving of the power and the narcissism, they're suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect, where
Sure.
you start to smoke your own crack and you believe your own hype, and it's dangerous. I mean, it's truly dangerous. You get to the point where you can't differentiate between your own value in the world, like your true value in the world, and your own perceived value. Plus, you lose the ability to make good decisions because those decisions, by definition, are largely uninformed, but you don't care because you're all that in a bag of chips, So I think it's really about, it goes back to intention, It is not like, for me, I'm sure what I'm saying could be considered polarizing to some people, but I don't really bother myself with that because I understand that my intention is all about love. I'm here to try and help people feel better in their own skin, to discover their own power, and to be able to operate from a place of self-acceptance, because that's the key to happiness, when you accept yourself. Because then if the haters come, it doesn't really bother you that much. I mean, I've got little haters here and there who have opinions about what I say, and I just smile. Because I don't even respond, because it's not necessary to respond to. It's like, oh, not for you. Okay, cool. Not for you. And the ability to have that's that unshakable part. Because when I think about validation, I focus on internal validation first, because I know who I am. I know what I'm trying to accomplish in the world. I'm doing the best that I can. I'm going to fuck up sometimes. It's all good. Who doesn't? We are perfectly imperfect humans. That's the way it is. I'm going to do great things sometimes, but I measure it against my own criteria. And that's how I retain my power. As soon as I say to the world, I am in your hands for you to judge me and decide whether I am good or bad or indifferent, it's like opening up the power buffet. You know those great buffets that you get at the Chinese food restaurant that's got like the everything and you eat until you want to barf? That's kind of what your power is. And when you allow people to come and snack at that power buffet, oh, they will snack. And you won't even necessarily feel it initially, because they'll have one little egg roll, one little wonton, one little piece of sushi, and you're like, oh, that's not so bad. Every comment they make, every critique they give you, every underhanded compliment, all that stuff, that's them coming from your power. And you're letting them do it if you are relying on them for any kind of validation. And at some point, they just walk away having chow down at your power buffet, and you're left feeling less than and feeling empty.
There have been multiple times in my 15-plus year tenure as a dating relationship consultant where I've opened my inbox and quite literally, right above an email pronouncing how horrible a person I am and how I should die in a car fire, is yet another email that says I've saved their life, changed them for the better. They found the love of their life specifically because of my work, and this glowing testimonial of how wonderful I am. And I've learned to realize both of those people are right and both of them are wrong. And neither one of them should change my focus as long as I know who the hell I am, what my purpose is, why I'm here, et cetera, right? You talked about this Dunning-Kruger effect, which we've mentioned on this show actually a few times just in the past couple of months. And that, of course, is a psychological principle whereby people lull themselves into believing they're experts at something that they're really pretty clueless about. And relative to, your local congressmen or senators, this is something that runs rampant, roughshod through politics, obviously, and through any realm of celebrity, really. At least in sports, you either know you're good or you're not because of the scoreboard and the numbers, right? Politics, maybe not so much. But it got me thinking as you talked about how if I listen to all the haters and let them affect my swagger, I will be, just like I said, cowering at the foot of my bed in a fetal position, sucking my thumb. But if I shield myself from all my haters, I run the risk of just basking in the glow of everybody who loves me and coming to this delusional conclusion that I can do no wrong and I'm perfect and I walk on water.
Yeah, but there's a middle ground.
Yes.
These are real extremes. These are super polar,
Yes, but it's amazing how many people succumb to one polar opposite or the other.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's because they're all starving for acceptance. That's what leads you to one polar or the other, right? It is that starvation for validation, that starvation for acceptance that makes you extreme.
And that's what Instagram is for.
Yeah, tell me about it. Like it's ridiculous. If you think about the quality of the relationships that you have, and you don't worry about the quantity of the relationships that you have, already you're far ahead of the game. I would never, ever, ever accept criticism from someone that I didn't respect. It's just not, I just don't do it. I am open to feedback of all forms. But if you want to give me meaningful feedback, you better know something about me, not just have sort of a cursory opinion of me, but you better know something about me so that that feedback can be meaningful. So I just don't really accept it. If someone says something to me that, someone that I know and who's got some skin in the game, or someone that I've known a long time, or someone who is very unselfish with their thoughts and ideas, if they have something negative to say about something that I'm doing, I will lean in and listen all day long. I will then filter it through, the lens of, okay, what do I think is valid here? Is there anything that's about their perspective? Because remember that when people judge us, they are judging it based on their damage. It has largely nothing to do with us. They're looking at it through a lens of their own damage, their own baggage, their own history, their own perception perspective. And so you have to take that with a massive pinch of salt. It's the equivalent of going into the airport, going up to the baggage carousel, dragging somebody else's baggage off the carousel, dragging it home, unpacking it, and putting someone else's dirty underwear on your head and walking around with it. That's what happens when you let other people's words and criticisms and crap become your story, your truth. It's bullshit. Yeah. People don't know anything about what you took to get here, what makes you who you are, or what you do or don't deserve to be or do or say in this world. Only you can determine that. And the less we rely on other people's opinions, the better off we are. But that's why you have to check yourself. You have to check yourself. If you don't know the difference between being an asshole and not being an asshole, you need to go talk to somebody.
That's self-awareness.
Yeah. You need somebody who you trust, who goes, every time that you're being an asshole or you actively, upsetting people, then you pinch me on my arm, whatever kind of aversion.
Well, that's where a mastermind comes in, people you trust that you're in consortium with. I want to go ahead and comment on a couple of things that you just said. First of all, this idea of not listening to haters versus just basking in the glow of people who love you and finding the balance there, I think is a very important topic for anyone who wants to achieve this wonderful state of swagger where we're comfortable in our own skin. We know our purpose. We know why we're here. We know the right that we do and the wrong that we're trying to avoid, and nobody can really knock us off our game. I love that idea. I think there are some nuances to it that are worth discussing. So here we go. First of all, you mentioned, hey, look, if someone has a criticism, I'll listen to it all day long as they're not someone who just hates me and is trying to crush me. That basically paraphrases what you said. A couple weeks ago, someone who has decided they don't like me anymore was very rudely upfront with me about why. And my first human response was to put up a defense. But I realized very quickly she sort of had a point. So I apologized to her and said, you're right about that, and I'm going to do better. This was not something that was related to my professional life, so I won't give the details. I mean, I wasn't horrible or evil to anybody, but it was something that I was doing that I didn't realize was having a negative effect on her and possibly someone else. And I said, you're absolutely right, and I'm going to do better. And then she just proceeded to be mean to me still and tell me why I was a horrible person. In other words, she took my vulnerability and exploited it, at which point I said, okay, now you can stop being mean to me. I said, I apologize, I'm going to do this. But it's kind of like that old adage, out of the mouth of babes, the truth sometimes comes out. Sometimes out of the mouth of people who really have it in for you, you'll hear something that's true. But only I could decide where that resonated. And I had to put aside, here you go, ready? Here's that word, the arrogance of thinking I was better than this woman because she didn't like me so much, and show a little humility and make myself a better person as a direct result, regardless of where the information was coming from. And by the way, that's been a couple weeks. I had another chance to do better. I did do better. And now I feel like I'm better at going about my business in the regard she was talking about than I used to be. Now, the other thing is, okay, someone may pull me aside and say, hey, you know what? You're not doing this very well. I have to be very careful about what that person's motives are. Do they want something I have and they're trying to knock me off my swagger so they can get it from me in some sort of manipulative sense? And I think you know what I'm talking about. We talked about that on the show before. Are they the only one telling me this? And they'll say things, kind of NLP-ish, like, oh, everybody says you're this, when they're really the only one saying it. You got to watch out for that. You got to kind of learn how that brand of manipulation works and fend off against it and know when you can listen to someone and when not to. And one of the best ways I've decided in my own professional life and personal life to know when there's something I need to correct is when I see a pattern of it from more than one person. Like if I get 5 emails and people are saying the same thing about my last newsletter or 10 emails about my last podcast saying, hey, you know what, McKay, you were doing a pretty good job until this happened. And boy, you should stop that. That's killing you. I probably will stop that. Even if these people don't necessarily know me personally or whatever, when I see a pattern, I act on it. And that way, if I approach this from the position of I'm becoming better, I won't feel so attacked. I'll feel like my swagger could actually improve here because I'm going to increase in value to my audience or to people I know. I'm going to be a better man, and that should make me more confident than feel beaten up and defeated. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about the title of your book, Swagger. You defined swagger earlier, and I was thinking as you talked about what swagger means to you, I've always viewed the word swagger, either correctly or incorrectly, as kind of a visual image, like someone who holds their shoulders back and has that fire in their eye and kind of cocks their head and, swaggers along. Swagger is a movement. Swagger is a verb. Swagger is something you do. There's just this swagger that certain people carry themselves with. That's what I thought of. And as you continued, I started realizing this is the perfect answer to people who struggle with the difference between confidence and arrogance. Because swagger isn't either. Swagger is different. Mm-hmm. Swagger is very much related, but still kind of captures a different whole vibe. Leslie, go ahead and tell us the difference between confidence and arrogance and how swagger kind of solves that equation.
Well, first of all, swagger manifests completely differently in every individual because every individual is unique. So there isn't one way to come across with swagger. There isn't one way to manifest it. If you're an extrovert, it might be a little louder. If you're more of an introvert, it's going to be more quiet, more self-possessed. If you're more intense, if you're geeky, if you're, whatever you are, that is how your swagger is going to manifest because it's true to you and for you. So let's not get fixated on the sort of this externalization of swagger. And it's more about how you feel. And the thing about confidence versus arrogant is that, people talk about confidence as the holy grail. Everybody wants it. We're all going after it. We're all trying to get it. And we think that it's going to be magic when we have it. The problem is that true confidence can only result from true competence. Only when you've done something over and over and over again, and you've proven to your own very resistant brain that you actually do know what you're talking about, and there is some validation for your skills, only then do you start to develop confidence because it's unshakable. People can come for it and challenge you and say, you don't know how to ride a bike. You're like, but yeah, I do know how to ride a bike because I ride a bike every day. It's like, that's the only way that you can develop that truly unshakable confidence. And it can be about a skill set, a mindset, it's something that comes from experience. But the problem is that most people want confidence so badly that they're willing to do the fake it till you make it thing. If I just pretend that I have confidence, eventually I'll get it. But it doesn't work that way. Because when you walk around telling everybody you got it, like I got it, I'm on it, I already have this skill set, I'm fantastic, what you do is you actively limit your ability to gain the very confidence that you need to develop the true confidence, because now you can't ask for help. You can't admit to anybody that you aren't perfectly adept, that you don't have all the skills in place, that you don't have all the experience in place yet, because now you'd be a liar. So that's a recipe for suffering from the imposter syndrome. And you will not get to that place of confidence without moving through that competence to confidence paradigm. And you're going to be in hell because you're going to be waiting for people to find you out. And that is not good for anyone. The other problem too is that whenever you're trying to stretch yourself or grow or innovate or take some risks, by definition, you're punted out of that confidence zone because you're going to have to move back into the unknown a little bit, to try that new thing or to stretch your skills or to, go in new directions. And if you're not comfortable in that, you're going to remain paralyzed. You're going to get to a certain level in your life and then you're going to stop because you don't like that feeling of being out of your depth or being uncomfortable. So the thing that we want to focus on is not so much confidence, because confidence comes. It will come. It comes to everybody who focuses on competence. What we want to focus on instead in the process is self-belief, which is very different because self-belief is internally driven and it doesn't rely on competence. It's just that feeling, that unshakable feeling that you have that you can step off the cliff and you're not going to die, that bad things are not going to happen to you. Yeah, you might get some bumps and bruises. Yeah, there might be an adventure, but you're not going to die. And thus, it gives you the courage to go and do new things, even though you're not super confident yet. That's, I think, the difference.
Well, let me tell you something. You and I are very much on the same page. You have no way of knowing this. What you just gave was a first-person rendition of what confidence is and what it's about. But I am on record over and over as defining confidence as the belief in one's own competence. And that's sort of the intersection of what you just said. Okay, I'm good at something, but not only that, I actually believe in my ability to affect something with my competent abilities. And obviously, as you can imagine, I use this frequently in the context of men feeling like they're good enough to attract the kind of woman they want in their life, or they're good enough to be the husband, father that they want to be, or have relationship readiness like they would like to be. But this goes for all areas of life. And one of the things that comes to mind relative to what you're saying is it's okay for me to be confident in terms of what I know how to do and what I should be doing, what I want to be good at and what I want to be better at and how I want to affect the world, and not be so confident in other areas where I know I don't have quite the aptitude or I don't have quite the interest or passion about being good at this. And I think that's very important. And one of the things that goes along with what you said about people who have this swagger as opposed to mere confidence is they're about getting better. They're open-minded towards improving. They don't feel like, hey, I've got this figured out. I'm confident. I have quote unquote arrived. This is why people who are already good, people who are already talented, people who already have aptitude, dare I say people who already have confidence in their abilities, go hire a coach, because it isn't a hopeless situation to them. It's about going from good to great. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Well, they're also not kidding themselves. They're also not kidding themselves about the fact that we all start from a place of, I don't know shit. Every human being starts from a place of, I don't know shit. And then over time and over experience, you learn a bunch of stuff. You develop your skills and so on and so forth. But you got to learn to fall in love with and own where you are in your journey and not always wish and hope that you were further along. I hear people say that to me all the time in my coaching practice. I just wish I was further along. Like, further along to what? Dead?
Well, you enjoy the journey, not just hoping for the destination. Every little bit helps.
And every experience that you have is the foundation on which the next thing, sits. So you can't just skip over the hard parts. You can't just skip over the learning parts. You don't just arrive fully formed one day and say, that's it. I am, Superman and I know all things and I can do all things. And hell to the no, and often the more painful and the more difficult the learning, the better the result, because it really goes in, it really sinks in and it really changes you in a meaningful way as opposed to surface stuff. And there is no shame in that. And that's part of it too. That's why swagger is so much focused on self-acceptance.
Well, I think that's a meaningful and proper rendition of the wildly popular masculine mantra nowadays of quote unquote, do hard things. Becoming a better man, going from good to great, having the humility that leads to swagger vis-a-vis the confidence is hard. It's not so easy to do.
Yeah.
Or
it's like in therapy. They say you got to do the work.
Yes.
You got to be prepared to do the work. If you're just coming here to chitty chat, you're not going to accomplish anything. You have to go out and live that truth, and do that work and try and fail and test it and see and be real while you're doing it. That is the secret, is to be real, because when you're real, you are present in your body. You're aware of what's going on around you. When you're full of shit, you're like living in this kind of vague fantasy world. And you're worrying about whether people are going to find you out or whether people are going to accept you or whatever. It's very hard to be present in that. As a result, you learn less.
You know what, Leslie? You've got to be a blast to hang out with. You got to come down to Texas once this is all over. Or maybe we should go to Canada, and all of us hang out, because you must just be a blast.
Well, keep it real wherever I go, baby. I'll keep it real. I promise you that.
I got two things. First of all, I don't want to let this ship sail without talking about it. But I would love to have a quick lightning round opinion from you about the psychological tendency of people to hang out with people who are like them in a very certain respect and eschew people who are the opposite. And here's that respect I'm talking about. People who are very blunt, tell it like it is, and are just upfront with you, right? Versus people who will piss on your leg and tell you it's raining. I think both of those types of people greatly prefer to hang out with people like themselves, and they can't stand the other kind of person. Would you agree with that?
I think it depends on the person. I think it's an individual thing. I really have learned in this life to not work in generalities, because every single person is unique. And I think we adapt to our circumstances and we make choices based on a whole bunch of stuff. And I think we change all the time. So I don't know. I have some friends who love me because I'm so direct, and they're not. And I have other friends who love me that I'm direct because they're just as direct as I am. So and some people who I'm sure hate on me because I'm so direct.
Well, you're in Canada. Maybe things are different there.
I think that it really depends on how you operate in this world. And that's why I go back to intention. If people know your intention, they will forgive you a whole bunch. And if you're not sure if they know your intention, tell them. And you can't go, my intention here is not to be an asshole and then be an asshole. It doesn't work that way.
Now, hold on a second. You talk about not being an asshole a lot, so it's time to define that.
Yeah.
Asshole is just being rude to people and running roughshod over people because you don't agree with them or you don't like them.
No, I think being an asshole is operating only for the self. That's it. That you have no regard for the collective or the greater good. It's only for yourself. That's that narcissistic kind of thing.
Okay, well, that's a much more elegant way to put it, and I can't argue with it. So there you go.
That's your asshole check. If you want to know whether you're being an asshole, say, is this just for me right now? Am I taking up all the oxygen in the room? Is that just about me? Am I treating someone a certain way because it's making me feel good but making them feel bad? Is this behavior contributing to anything positive, or am I just being negative? If the answer is yes, you're an asshole.
Well, there's also that wonderful moniker douchebag, which sounds related to what you're talking about. Someone who thinks they're cool when they're really not, because they're trying to focus so much on themselves to the exclusion of other people that they conveniently somehow overlook the fact that the true essence of being cool is making other people feel cool, not lifting yourself
Absolutely.
up. Very simple.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about arrogance before we wrap up, because these guys are going to come at me with torches and pitchforks if we don't establish that. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it out on the table and let you riff on it, okay? Swagger, you've defined. Confidence is belief in one's own competence. There's nothing wrong with either of those. Those are both very attractive qualities. People want more of that when they see it. They want more of you if you're bringing them along. Hence the definition of being a cool person that we just talked about. Arrogant people are almost universally disliked. I have never heard someone referred to as arrogant by someone who admired them or wanted more of them. And to me, that's because arrogance implies this air of feeling one is better than other people. Like, I'm worth more than you. I know more than you. I'm better at this than you are, and you're somehow below me. That's an arrogance. And that is universally unattractive and what we want to avoid, and has nothing to do with your genuine perspective on swagger, now does it?
No. I mean, arrogance is an overinflated, unearned sense of importance. Bottom line.
So you're adding a layer on that as I'm delusional in terms of how competent I really am about something.
Yeah, and how important I am in the scheme of things. That's basically what arrogance is. And as a result, the other things that you just mentioned come into play with that. And as a result, I feel that I'm better. That's all symptomatic of arrogance. I feel that I'm better than people. I feel like I'm more worthy. I feel like I'm above them and all that kind of stuff. Those are all symptomatic of arrogance. But arrogance fundamentally is the belief that you are superior, and it's an unearned sense of importance.
Yeah, very good. I think that's a great way to describe it, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Her name is Leslie Ehm, E-H-M, and that's going to be important to remember because that's where I'm going to send you so you can get a copy of her book, Swagger, Unleash Everything You Are, Become Everything You Want. Go to mountaintoppodcast.com/MEHM and get you a copy. It's a great book. It's a lot of fun. How can it not be? You already realize that Leslie herself is a lot of fun. So get you a copy of the book. I will also put it at the top of my Amazon influencer page at mountaintoppodcast.com/Amazon. Leslie, thank you so much for joining us today, and we sure hope you'll come back.
Thank you. It was totally juicy, Scott. I loved it.
And guys, as a reminder, head on over to mountaintoppodcast.com where you'll find a wealth of information and resources to help you become a better man and get better women in your life. You can download a free book called Sticking Points Solved. And if you've ever had any questions or any issues at all surrounding your relationship with women, whether you're married, single, or somewhere in between, this book is going to be a true eye-opener for you. And you can download your free copy at mountaintoppodcast.com. And when you do, you'll be signed up for my daily newsletter, which is fluff-free. Gives you straight talk on a daily basis about how to be a better man and be better with women. That's there for you at mountaintoppodcast.com. And listen, guys, fall is upon us, right? People are getting their nose back on the grindstone. They're moving forward. They're getting things done. That means if you're serious about getting the right woman in your life, the time is now to do what we talked about on this very show and go from good to great. If you feel like, hey, something's missing from your ability to attract the kind of woman you want into your life, talk to me for free for 25 minutes and let's put a plan of action together to get the kind of woman you want into your life. When you're at mountaintoppodcast.com, click on the red button that allows you to get on my schedule. If we talk for longer than 25 minutes, that's okay also. I want to hear from you. You'll find that I'm exactly who you think I'm going to be. I'm a normal guy just like you. And also, while you're at mountaintoppodcast.com, please visit our sponsors, both Origin in Maine and Hero Soap Company. Both of those longtime sponsors of our show are absolutely committed to quality, making you as manly as you can be. Hero Soap gives you the best soap and body wash you can imagine. If you have not tried it yet, you should. Origin in Maine, the best boots I've ever worn, the best jeans I've ever worn, great supplements, great protein powder in particular. Listen, guys, both of those companies, both of those sponsors are committed to excellence. You've heard me talk about them a lot on this show. If you have not checked them out yet, it's finally time to do so. You can go to either mountaintoppodcast.com/origin or mountaintoppodcast.com/hero soap and check them out and get you some. And of course, with either of our sponsors, you can use the coupon code MOUNTAIN10 to get an extra 10% off your order. You'll find links to both Hero Soap and Origin in Maine also at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes And while you're there, sign up for the free X and Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.